All right, we'll now proceed with questions. Again, candidates will have a minute and 30 seconds to answer each question. This first set of questions seeks to understand the candidate's qualifications. Question 1, and this is to Tate. The Vice President manages and oversees UP services designed to enrich the student experience. These services include ASUP Films, Advantage, Espresso UP, and Pilots Express. With over a dozen student workers under your direction, what about your personal experience and unique perspective qualifies you for a leadership and management role of this scope?
Thank you so much. So I have worked for almost, probably 3 years now for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, better known by people as FEMA. They chose 8 youth leaders from across the US one year, and we were tasked with running all of their youth programs almost as an internship. So I've been flown across the country by FEMA to work on committees and all different things. And then I was selected as one of 3 committee chairs to run all of these programs. So I feel very well prepared to run these programs that I've already gotten kind of an inside look at through my work with ASUP, given the fact that I have experience running national programs. I have a lot of goals within these specific programs that I would like to try and implement and work really closely with their leaders to do, and with the currently existing student leaders. I think that one of the most important things is using Espresso UP as a function for diversity. We've used it in the past to have different clubs co-host events, and I really want to amplify and intensify like the student love of Espresso UP. Everybody loves free coffee, but I want us to be attending the events just as much to talk to our representatives and network and fight for change as we are for a vanilla latte.
Thank you, Tate. All right, Grace, same question to you. With over a dozen student workers under your direction, what about your personal experience and unique perspective qualifies you for a leadership and management role?
Thank you. So I want to talk about a little bit about my experience with UP. Now, I've already held some leadership experience that has allowed me to step up to this position. Currently, all of the board members of the ASUP board are white. Now, there needs to be a change. There needs to be representation of our minority groups. And I can back up myself and say I'm hardworking and I've done these accomplishments, but the fact of the matter is I've never been involved in student government. This is my first time being involved in student government, and I think we need a fresh set of eyes. I think we need to represent the minority groups who are fighting for the change and fighting for the leadership that we are all so much begging for. There's clearly a change that needs to happen within the UP community, and we need someone to represent us that is not white. We need someone who will say, we need to represent this student body, and we need to implement changes that we are so longing for. And if we continue to have a board member that is not inclusive of everyone, I don't think we can move forward.
All right, thank you, Grace. Tate, do you have a response?
Yeah, I would like to respond to that. So I'm white, and I will never face the kind of racial discrimination and tokenization that you have or will at UP or anywhere else. In the same way, you are cisgender, and you will never face the transphobia that I have. I'm not ever one to compare diverse experiences to say that one is worse or one is easier to go through. I think that they are all very challenging and things that neither one of us should have to go through. In the nursing school that we share, I've been called out in class by an angry professor, and I've had to defend the validity of my existence at our university explicitly in front of a room of my classmates. That incident went unresponded to by the School of Nursing. I've been chased on the quad where I live after having slurs yelled at me by strangers, and I'm not safe off campus either. I've heard people say horrible things about the most private elements of my body and life in Bauchio Commons. And even during this election, I've deleted numerous transphobic comments and direct messages attacking me for my identity.
All right, thank you, Tate. That is time for the
To
response.
define my diversity invalidates these experiences. And though I think that we are very different, I think that we should come together over these issues of diversity and not make there be white diverse people and then as like somehow less diverse than other people. It's a very personal issue to me.
Thank you, Grace. If you want a response, you'll have 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm not saying that your experience is any easier than my experience. And I am sorry that you had to go through that and you still have to face experiences like that every single day. I did not choose to be Indian. I did not choose to have to face the same experiences that I have faced. What I am saying is when we have an executive board of 5 out of 5 members being white, I'm not targeting anybody. What I'm saying is my experiences are just as unique as anybody else going to this school. I'm not saying that yours are any less harsh or yours are any worse than mine. What I'm saying is I've had those experiences as well. I've been praised by my ability to speak English by a professor. I've had the same experiences where I applied to be an RA and all of the members of the RA committee decided that they wanted to choose all white RAs. I'm not saying that we are completely different people. What I'm trying to say is we need representation within our committees, within leadership. And if we don't have representation of our minority groups, then there's no way we can move forward. And I know that your experiences are just as valid as mine. I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to say is that we need more diversity. And without diversity, we can't keep holding these leadership positions without representing every part of the student body.
I appreciate that a lot. And I'd like to note too that just as you didn't choose to be born Indian, I did not choose to be born trans. Being trans is not a choice. And the executive board with you on it would be 5 out of 5 cisgender people, which will change the way that our university interacts with transness fundamentally. And it's not something that affects only 2 or 3 people on campus. There are more of us than you know, and a lot of us are hiding because we're afraid. Thank you so much for your response, and I appreciate your compassion because as I'm sure you can see, it's a thing that's very close to my heart, and I can see that it is for you as well.
Thank you, Tate. Grace, you'll have the last response. You have 45 seconds.
I 100% agree with you in everything that you said. I am not hating on anybody here. I agree that your experiences are just as genuine as mine. And I agree with you that nobody has to choose how to express themselves, what they want to say. This is just kind of like what representation do our students need. And I think University of Portland would be happy to have either one of us because we both represent some unique qualities that the university is actually longing for. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next question. As a political representative, you'll often have to walk fine lines of student opinion. Last year, ASUP Films, a service that provides free movie screenings for campus clubs and organizations, sparked a little bit of controversy when Vice President Mitchell decided to halt the screening of an anti-abortion film from a pro-life group on campus. As ASUP Vice President, how would you approach this issue? And how do you, as Vice President, balance featuring diverse student perspectives with protecting vulnerable student populations? We'll start with Grace.
Thank you. I think when you are representing one side, it is only ethical to represent the other side. I think it makes sense that if one side of the perspective says we want to talk about this, then it's only fair if we represent everyone else on the campus too who feels somewhere different. It would just be unjust if we decided to go one way and not the other. At the same time, though, I think we need to take accountability that we will offend people, and that's just part of it. The part is we are going to offend people, and we need to take accountability for that. If someone says this is not okay, we need to address their concerns. A lot of the times there are concerns that students have, and they just are looked past from the administration because they are not getting the answers that they want. So I think if you're going to address one side, you need to address the other, but at the same time, there needs to be equal representation, or else the university just chooses one side over the other.
Grace, your response? I'm sorry, Tate, your response?
Yeah, so I think that like showing the free speech of many different groups across campus is incredibly important. And I have supporters right now who are conservative, and also a lot of supporters, sorry, who are very liberal. And I think that the reasoning for that is because they know that regardless of who they are, I will listen to their concerns and I will try and address them equally, because ultimately it's not my job as a member of ASUP to put my opinions on, like this filter of my opinions on the issues that I bring forward. It's my job to represent the students, because ultimately everybody pays the same exact student activities fee. Everybody's paying the same amount for this representation. And so it's my opinion that it's absolutely our job to allow space for different groups to bring their opinions to the table. If anybody who's here read my opinion piece in the Beacon a bit ago, you could see through that I am not one to attack people who don't share my views.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. Both of you have promised to push BONAP to include culturally diverse meal options. How do you plan to accomplish this goal? And what does a new BONAP menu look like to you? Tate, you'll start.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I love this question because this is something that is very important to me. And I've been working a lot with the BIPOC Student Leaders Group and QT BIPOC Student Leaders Group to find opportunities to have outside food, because Bon Appetit kind of has this, like, I don't know if everybody knows this or if it's very common knowledge, but there is a radius around the university where Bon App is contracted to not have people offering outside food. And so that's why you kind of have to like go out to Willamette to be able to get any other food options. And so we're getting exemptions currently, working with did everybody see the petition that went out from the diverse students a while ago? Because in that it said that one of the things we're working with is getting students who are diverse and their diversity clubs the opportunity to bring in outside catering, as well as talking to BONAP to work directly with their chefs and literally like walk into the kitchens, which students have never been able to do before, to try foods and offer them recipes. Like literally you could give BONAP a club could give BONAP a recipe from someone's family, a culturally authentic recipe, and have them make it and then critique it and like work with them on improving it, making smaller batches of really high quality, culturally diverse food. They're also doing a program where they offer monthly meals, and I think that should be switched to implement more diversity of options there as well. And then I think that dietary restrictions is another thing to address.
Grace, same question to you.
I think going off of that, sorry,
I'm just going to repeat the question for people who just went in. Both of you have promised to push BONAP to include culturally diverse meal options. How do you plan to accomplish this goal, and what does a new BONAP menu look like to you?
I think going off of the dietary restrictions that Tate just mentioned, there are a lot of students who have complained about allergies and contamination. One of my main goals is to make sure that within the menu of that, we need to have allergen contamination information and what allergies could be possible, whether it's tree nuts or whatever it is, that needs to be listed under the menu. The menu needs to have the recipe so that students are able to know exactly what they can eat and what they can't eat. And then I think going off of the having more culturally diverse food, one of the things is that we need to incorporate halal options. A lot of our community is not able to eat a lot of the foods that we say are culturally able to represent our entire student body. And I think by adding those halal menus, we are trying to be more inclusive. So that's going to be my first thing that I implement as Vice President, is making sure that I'm implementing those halal menus and I'm implementing those allergen contamination information, because so many people continue to not feel good after they have those meals and continue to just, they don't want to eat. And that's not the goal that we're trying to have.
Grace, would you like to follow? Tate, would you like to follow up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely think that that is a huge issue, and it's not just halal stuff, it's also kosher, vegan. Too many times my friends have gotten the vegan bowl in P House and had it covered in mayo. Like, how does that work? How's that supposed to be vegan? So there are definitely a lot of issues surrounding dietary things at UP. And honestly, I think that we just need to have like, there's currently like a diverse student board that regularly meets with BONAP that we were able to implement this summer. But from the conversations that I've had with the owners and the managers at UP of BONAP, they are very open to having some kind of student committee that would be able to offer direct feedback. As I think I said on one of my slides on my Instagram, like, no more crunchy lentils. I eat largely plant-based food, and I remember getting crunchy lentils once that were not seasoned at all. So yeah, let's not keep doing that.
All right, thank you, Tate. Grace, you'll have 45 seconds for a final response.
I think also going on top of that, we need to have more healthier side options. Going to P House and then only getting either a side of fries or a salad that doesn't have anything, any substance to it, is just, that's just not okay. We need to have more side options. And I think having that committee that you just mentioned, Tate, and being able to respond and being able to contribute that power back to the students to respond and say, this is not working for us, we don't want to eat this. I think that's incredible. Thank you.
Okay, next question, starting with Grace. Both of you have promised to push for a new and improved diversity center. Now, many ASUP candidates have promised this in the past, but none have succeeded. How do you plan to successfully fight for a new diversity center on campus?
Am I first?
Yes.
Okay. Diversity Center is something that's very important to me, and I think that implementing it will be the first action that I plan on doing as Vice President. I currently know that there is a Diversity Center, and it is a small classroom on the first floor of Buckley, is what I'm aware. And clubs are able to have meetings, is what they say, but the reality of it is that clubs actually aren't able to have those meetings, and to even schedule a meeting is almost impossible. To even find that diversity center is impossible. So I think that as Vice President, we need a full diversity center. And my goal is not just to outreach to the administration, but my goal is to kind of do outreach to students of the QT BIPOC community and faculty of the QT BIPOC community, trying to get ways to implement the Diversity Center so it's not just a small classroom, and make sure that it is more accessible. The other part that goes into that is getting funding for a Diversity Center. I know that they are working on making sure the Moreau Center is kind of a little better and more accessible to everyone, and they're kind of rebuilding it, is what I've heard. But I think we need to implement a diversity center in there, and we need to get more funding from students and kind of get the word out more, because I know there's a lot of funding going on for baseball field and a bunch of other athletics departments. And so I think by implementing ways that we can actually get funding for the Diversity Center would be my first goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Tate, same question. You'll have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
So thank you. And at the beginning, Grace mentioned being put on a committee that never met. And this happened to me with the whole diversity center thing as well. When I first arrived at UP, they said, hey, we're going to make a new diversity center. And we really want you to be on this committee to talk to us about the gender and sexuality elements of it. And then they never met. So there's definitely been conversation within DIP and diversity and inclusion programs about the possibility of using the president's house as a diversity center, which is very exciting to me. And that's definitely something that I would like to push pretty hard for. Poorman has said before that he's interested or that he misses living in the dorms with students. And so I think that that's definitely something that we can look into and continue to push for. To be very honest, the Gender and Sexuality Partnership fondly calls the, I shouldn't say fondly, we refer to the current diversity center, not as a diversity center, but as the diversity closet, because it is basically just a utility closet with no audiovisual system, a tiny window, and we were kicked out of it last year so that a Bible study group could meet, which is like not really considered diverse, I don't think, on a Catholic campus. And so that felt problematic to me, and I've experienced all those things that you were saying, Grace. And so, yeah, I think that working closely with DIP, talking to Eddie, like there are a bunch of first steps that we have ready to go and things already in the works for getting that done. It's super important.
All right, thank you, Tate. I'm gonna move to Grace. Grace, you'll have 1 minute to respond on this question.
I definitely agree. I've also heard about having that diversity center be in Father Porman's house. Now, what I've heard though is that that's something that isn't going to be accomplished, but that is a goal that many students do have. So if it was to be accomplished, that would be amazing. I think though the first thing that we do need to do is get funding for it. I know with the administration, they're very picky. And although I have never talked to administration, I've tried to talk to somebody so that they could talk to the administration. They're very picky on what they can do, where the money is being allocated. But if the money is actually being allocated to specific funds, there has to be a way that we can allocate that money towards the diversity center. So I think implementing it, that's a lot bigger and a lot efficient for everybody to use would be amazing. But I think the main overarching theme is that we need the money for it. And so I think the goal to get the money for that is kind of being in touch with the administration, talking to them, kind of sitting by their door and being like, please, what can I do to make sure, you know, we can get this diversity center going? Because we know there's money, we just got to be able to allocate it somewhere.
Tate, you have 1 minute for the final response.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that the university, like based off of all my conversations with them, is really strapped for cash right now, right? They are honestly struggling. And I don't think that they are saying it because they're just like, they don't want to have people lose confidence in them, but they are relying very heavily right now on donors. And I think that donors would be very willing, I know that donors would be very willing to give directly to a diversity center. And I think that approaching TOP directly, which is the call center, and trying to convince them to even just do a week of devoting all of their calling to getting funding for a diversity center, like that's the move right there if you really want to get funding. They have had issues before with people working there, noting that they received money for a diversity club that they were a part of and then never actually seeing that money as a diversity club. So we have a little bit of a bargaining chip there that we can use to get the funding that we need for a diversity center, I think.
All right, with that, that's a good segue into our next question. Speaking of trust in the university, right now, students are especially concerned about the protection of QT BIPOC students on campus. How do you plan to work with or against an administration that has repeatedly been criticized for racist, sexist, and homophobic actions? Tate, you'll start.
Thank you. I just want to ask a clarifying question about what you just asked. When you say QT BIPOC, are you referring to people who are both queer and trans and BIPOC, or queer, trans, and BIPOC, like all included?
I'm going to allow you to interpret that as you wish.
Okay, I'm just going to answer the question slightly differently because I would like to include just like diverse student groups in general, anybody who has a club right now. So we have not had good luck working with admin on these kinds of issues directly. The best luck that we've had is through DIP and through the office of Eddie Contreras. And I think that that's going to be the route that we're going to want to continue to take. The university has recently been silencing students, in my experience, coming from the angle of like demands from non-diverse students. But because of the societal pressure that has that I'm so grateful has been created, especially within the Portland area, because there's such a spotlight on our city right now. They're listening right now to BIPOC and queer and trans students more than they ever have before. And so I think that working directly with DIP and getting large numbers of students to demand things is the only way that things get done. We had great luck with that over the summer with the petition that went out.
Grace, how do you plan to work with or against an administration that has repeatedly been criticized for racist, sexist, and homophobic actions?
I think the answer is that they need to be called out. The administration has got to be called out, and it's just as simple as that. Nobody has the answer to why the administration has continuously been racist, homophobic, and so forth. It's the administration. Is 11 out of the 14 of the members of the administration are men. 10 out of the 14 are white. There are reasons why they are continuously making decisions behind our backs. Now, to work with the administration, we just have to be transparent with them. We have to call them out when needed. And that's just how it works. We need, like Tate said, we need a lot of people to back each other up and say, hey, the administration has to be accountable for all of their actions. And if we don't do that, then the administration's not going to take anything into consideration. Now, by having members of the QT BIPOC community speak up and talk about why it is so important that we fix the changes that we've been so longing for, that's the only way we're going to achieve anything with the administration. We need more clear-cut communication within the students, within the faculty, everyone, because without clear-cut communication, they're going to continue keeping everything in private until something comes out of the blue saying the administration did this or said this, and we're going to be stuck here questioning why the administration continues to question us and continues to say these racist remarks, when in reality we need that clear-cut communication with the administration to say, here's what we're doing, here's what we need to be, what changes we need, and here's how you can help us. Without the students, there's really nothing that can happen, and being able to be transparent with the administration is the only way we're going to accomplish that.
All right, Tate, you'll have 45 seconds to elaborate on your strategy.
Totally. So this is why having a vice president who is not as much a representative as a conduit and facilitator and organizer of the greater student body, especially during these times when we've seen again and again that the university only listens to students when there is a huge group of people all talking about the same thing in unison. And because honestly, the university hasn't been acting out of genuine care for our BIPOC and queer and trans student groups. They act out of fear very often because they're afraid of being canceled, right? And so I think that that's really what we need to leverage. Students have had good luck writing articles and publishing them through the Beacon and through other news sources. Petitions have worked well in the past. And then just having a large number of people continuously committed to the ideas, because it's far too easy to just receive a petition in Poorman's inbox and say, sorry, we can't handle this right now.
Time is up for this question. Grace, you'll have 45 seconds for the final response.
Thank you. I agree. I think that being able to accomplish something isn't something that one person is going to do if we want to talk to the administration directly. I think we need a group of people who agree, who have the same values and beliefs, and are able to say, hey, administration, you are completely wrong. This is what you need to change. It's not only going to be one person. And I think being vice president, you have the privilege of actually working with the administration. Now, my goal with working with the administration isn't just so I can bring concerns up to them for them to get, be like, okay, we'll work on it, and then for me to go back and say, sorry, that didn't work out. We need a group of people who collectively can bring these issues up, and so that I can bring it up and force the administration to take accountability for it. And if nobody is able to do that, then the administration is going to continue doing that. So I think I agree 100% with having a group of people to make sure that everyone is making sure that administration is taking accountability for their actions.
This next question comes from a student. This student says, many voters have noted that the two of you have very similar platforms. What sets you apart from your opponent, and why should students trust you to be the next vice president? Grace, let's hear from you first.
I think we need a fresh set of eyes. I think that when I say that I've never been part of student government, I've never been part of student government, and I don't know much about it. The reason that I am applying to be vice president is because I've had the leadership qualities to have aided me to help make change. There's a reason students are asking for help. There's a reason students are demanding that we need change in the administration. There's a reason that we continuously keep getting failed by the university when questions come up and the administration says we don't know the answers to them. The reason I'm applying to be vice president and to be a role model is because I face the same challenges that students are still continuing to face. Thank you.
Tate, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Thank you so much. So I absolutely hear your perspective of needing a fresh pair of eyes. And I think that more than having one fresh pair of eyes, we need somebody who really knows the ropes, could walk admin, ASUP, any of that in the dark, and then bring in all of the students who have these fresh pairs of eyes. Because to be totally honest, one student can't understand, can't seek out, can't demand change in all of the different facets. Like, I'm sure that everybody has read our campaign goals and heard things like fix BONAP stuff and fix Title IX and all these different, and has read these things and thought, how the heck are you going to do all of those things? And the reason that like there is a huge amount of doubt about how that could happen. And the only way that it can happen is if we have tons of students with one skilled facilitator who can bring students into meetings, put students on committees, and give students more of a voice versus being the voice for the students. Thank you.
Grace, your response?
I think going off of that, every new job starts off rough. Everyone starts off saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. But at the same time, it's the experiences that you have when you start the job. I'm not saying that because I'm a newbie to this thing, I'm not going to know anything. I'm saying that I have my experiences, I have the leadership skills, and I want to make change just as anyone else does on this campus. And with that being said, I think having a fresh pair of eyes in leadership shows that we can make a difference. There's clearly something wrong with having the same people decide the same things for us. If we're not representing QT BIPOC community at all within our community, then there's no way we're going to actually make those changes. We can say, I can sit here and say, you know what, I'm going to promise this, this, and this. The reality of it is that my first goal is to encourage student outreach. I like you said, I need students to come with me and talk to me about how they're feeling. Use my office hours to make sure that students are talking about their concerns so that I can directly bring it up to the administration.
Thank you, Grace. I'm going to swing over to Tate again, and then you'll have a chance to respond again.
Thank you. So students have seen that I have a track record of doing exactly this thing that I'm talking about, of getting positions of leadership and then bringing other students with fresh sets of eyes into them to share their experiences, their concerns, and voice their opinions on how the university can be improved. And so I've done this through my position in ASUP as a facilitator. Sorry, my corgi just walked in. I've done this through my position in ASUP as a connection point for our diverse student leaders group that is comprised of leaders of Latinx Student Union, Jewish Student Union, women of color, all of these different groups who've been working together to make some real change. And so just as a senator, I've been providing that conduit, and I really would like to continue doing that with the added boost of being at the vice presidential level and letting all of these groups have a voice at that level.
Grace, you have 45 seconds for the final response.
I think that I'm running to not adhere to the same old ways of doing things. I'm running on my passion and not my position. And whether someone chooses Tate Harris as their vice president or me as their vice president, I think they're in good hands. And I think we both want to accomplish the same things. We want diversity. We want more student involvement. We need administration to own up to the things that they aren't taking accountability for. So I think that being able to work on your behalf and taking that responsibility to make sure that those goals are being accomplished is exactly what I set my mind to doing as vice president. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to our final question as we close up tonight's debate. This question is about ASUP as an institution. Students would like to know, knowing what you do about ASUP, what would you like to see changed about the organization? What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? And what are your plans to take action on what you think should be changed? We will start with Tate.
Thank you so much. So the thing that we keep asking for from the administration as students is transparency. And if I'm going to be totally honest, that isn't always reflected from ASUP either. I think that there are plenty of these people, or there are plenty of people on this call who don't always know what ASUP is doing. And we have senators who are supposed to be letting everybody know, and the senators don't always know what the executive board is doing. And so I think that just increasing communication drastically between the different groups of ASUP and communicating really consistently with students, more through social media, not calling you out in any way, Director Jones, because I know you're in charge of communications right now. But I definitely think that students just need to be more aware of what their representatives are doing, because if they're representing them and they don't know what they're doing, obviously the system isn't working. I also, as vice president, have a lot of changes that I want to make to the voting process. I think that ranked voting as a system is something that needs to be implemented at a university level, as well as probably more in the nation. That's what I would like to happen personally. But I think that we should model that at UP, offering more opportunities for these second choice candidates who usually end up being our most diverse candidates to have more of a voice and be chosen to be on our, and I feel like honestly that would change a lot of the makeup of our executive board and Senate. I think also just outreach when we're trying to get people to be on ASUP, because this is such an unprecedented election. We've had tons of people involved as candidates, and we just haven't had that in a lot of our elections in the past. And a lot of the people who are on the executive board right now didn't have a bunch of people running against them. And I think that that should have been the case.
Grace, your response?
I completely agree. I think that there needs to be more kind of like, there are two main goals when it comes to the elections committee. The two main goals are, how do I get people to vote, and how do we get people to apply? I think going to clubs and talking about the ASUP elections and when they're open and when they can apply can get a lot more outreach than we think. And I think in the past, like you said, many people have run unopposed because a lot of the ASUP elections, they just haven't been promoted as much. And I think this election for vice president, we had, I believe, 6 other people running against us. So I think there definitely needs to be a change in how much we're advertising and marketing about how important it is to get out there and vote and also apply. And I also think that there needs to be a debate before students can vote so that their ideas can be displayed to everybody rather than their friends just voting for them. So I think there's a lot of changes, and I know that even though it's been unprecedented and it's because of COVID-19, I think there's still a lot of changes that need to be made.
All right, with that, we're going to close the debate with 2-minute closing statements from each candidate. We'll start with Grace.
Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Hello? Okay. Sorry, give me 1 second. As you know, I'm asking you to vote for me as your vice president. I've never been a part of ASUP leadership, but that fresh set of eyes that I've been talking about is exactly what we need. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the same old ways of doing things. And like I said, I'm running for my passion and not my position. We need actual change, and that's only going to happen if we have more representation of our minority groups. In this position, I know that I will work harder on your behalf than ever before, listen to your ideas, and do everything in my power to make sure that our campus is as inclusive and safe as possible. I am not here only as a candidate, but I want to be your friend. And as any good friend would do, I want to be honest with you and transparent about all of the challenges that our school faces. And I will do my absolute best to communicate with you and to keep you informed. But as a friend, I also will be asking for your help. No one person has all of the answers or can do all of the work, and I believe you and the University of Portland can work together to accomplish the goals that we set our mind to. I'm asking today for your vote, and I believe that the qualities that I have to be an effective leader and to provide you with the best resources that UP can offer, because we are paying so much for that to go to waste. We as students have made so much progress, and there's so much progress to be made, and I'm asking you to vote for me because I know I can take the tasks of this job. Vote for me as your vice president, and I won't disappoint you. I will advocate for you, and I will be your friend. Thank you.
Tate, closing statement.
Thank you so much. So, as you've heard throughout this debate, I have a lot of plans and a lot of goals and a lot of ideas. And ultimately, whoever you vote for, I think many of you on this call are seeing this as well. Whoever you vote for, it's going to be great. We both have a lot of experiences that the university definitely needs to see. And we have a lot of experiences in service and student leadership that will make the university a better place. Ultimately, the reason that I think that you should vote for me is because I have the experience to back all of this up. I know how these systems work, and I want to bring your voices to the table and then share all of that and model that transparency that I keep asking for from the university. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I post after literally anything happens and share detailed accounts of what the university is doing, what might be happening next. And I offer you all opportunities to respond. And then I share those back with the university because it's your voice that matters most, not mine. So thank you so much for coming to this debate. I really appreciate your time in listening. Yeah, please vote Tate Harris as our first ever trans executive board member. It's so exciting, and I'm honored to even be where I am right now. There's big change in the works, and I need your help to get it done. So let's vote. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much to everyone who came to listen to both of these wonderful candidates. We might not know who's going to win, but we do know we'll have an amazing vice president when the time comes. Remember that polls close at 4 p.m. this Friday. Now that you're informed, get out there and vote and tell your friends to vote as well. Thank you to everyone for coming tonight. This concludes our first ever vice presidential debate.